Time to make another video. It is July the 6th, 2016. It is 9:13 at night. I'm sitting here in our dining room listening to some, I don't know what you call it, death metal, black metal. Just finished writing in my diary for July 2016. I'm on page 57. I closed on 578. Tomorrow, Lord willing, I'll be on 579. Pretty soon I'll be on page 600 of my 2016 diary. So yeah, so I was writing in my diary. Before that, I was reading late this afternoon and evening, once again, The Adventures and Misadventures of Marquero by Alvaro Mutis. I finished that one I mentioned last video, Un Bel Morar. And I started at the beginning. I decided to stick with this and read the beginning. So today I started The Snow of the Abnel, the first novella. I mean, I'm really enjoying this. He's the writer here, Alvaro Mutis, was a poet first of all, and then later on he began to write these stories, and there's kind of like a magic realism to them, kind of dreamy, kind of lush, kind of romantic, kind of really great prose, great translation, really enjoying it. So I was reading that, and then I start reading this evening The Bohemians, Mark Twain and the San Francisco Writers Who Reinvented American Literature. I got in the mail the other day that biography I mentioned I had ordered used. Really nice condition for it's only $3 for this thing. And it's in perfect condition. It retailed for $30. It's called The Mark Twain, Man in White, The Grand Adventure of His Final Years by Michael Sheldon. It's really a great condition, isn't it? Really nice cover. It's almost perfect, like it hadn't been read. So I got that in the mail. I've been looking at that. As I mentioned, that when I find a biographer, Michael Sheldon, I start buying all their biographies. As I mentioned, I bought his new biography, Melville in Love, The Secret Life of Herman Melville and the Muse of Moby Dick. I haven't started this, but I haven't put it down in the library downstairs, so I still might get into it. And I was reading yesterday Gord Vidal, his essays, United States Essays 1952 to 1999. I started reading his essay on Doris Lessing in this volume. And this morning I started reading once again St. John of the Cross, The Ascent of Mount Carmel, and I read The Scattered Lantern, Rediscovering a Felt Presence of God by Ronald Rolheiser. Yeah, I stopped reading The Ascent of Mount Carmel because I was getting kind of blown out, but I don't like reading. I like reading serious Christian literature in the morning. I don't like reading secular stuff. So I try to read the Bible or commentaries or mystical theology or biblical studies or commentaries or Old Testament commentaries or something that gets me into the Bible. So yeah. So I was reading this week still 1982, Jasnin by the Scottish writer Alistair Gray. And I've been looking at this used book I got at the 4th of July used book sale. Timothy Leary, Outside Looking In, Appreciations, Castrations, and Reminiscence, edited by Robert Fort. I've read a lot of Timothy Leary's writings, his biographies, and as I have mentioned in the past, when I was young, I took a lot of psychedelic drugs. I was really into LSD when I was in high school, and always been into higher consciousness and cosmic consciousness and conscious expanding drugs, and how does one come to see the unity of all things, the oneness of all things, which only can happen when you are in Christ, who is the unifier of all things, who reconciled sinners in the cosmos to himself by his sacrifice on the cross. So I was looking at that. I forgot to mention that I went to the thrift stores last week, and I found this old volume of essays by talking about psychedelic drugs. Aldous Huxley, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and other essays by Huxley. Huxley is also mentioned in this book. He has a thing in here where he what's it say here? Huxley, oh yeah, letters. It's a letter to Ginsberg, or a letter about Timothy Leary in here by Huxley. So yeah, I found these essays, but it's really an old volume. It was published, I think, in 1956. So I found that. I don't see any essays on drugs in here, psychedelics. So I found that for I have a huge Huxley collection, about that big, of all his writings and his novels and his biographies. I also found another book by John Mortimer, Paradise Postponed. I've seen his books at used book sales, thrift stores for a long time, and I didn't buy them, but now I'm going to start collecting him. He wrote a lot of books. I really like English writers. So I started collecting him. I also found at a thrift store, William Sandron, A Tidewater Morning. These are 3 tales from youth by him. I collect them. I have almost all his novels and some other things by him, interviews. So I found that. Been looking at Rick Moody's memoirs, The Black Veil. I read this a couple of years ago, but I was looking through this again. This is the hardback edition I found at the 4th of July used book sale. Mine's a paperback. I really like Rick Moody. Today I came across this writer. Her name is Shirley Hazard, and she wrote a book that I plan to buy used next month called The Transit of Venus, that I've been reading about on the internet, and I want to get it for my collection. But I have her novel. It's called The Great Fire. It won the National Book Award winner. several years ago, I think. This was published in, says here it was published 2003. So I got this out to look at. So that's what I've been reading. That's what I got at thrift stores. That's what's on my mind. Also, I want to make a confession here that I've never read Hemingway. I've never read Scott Fitzgerald. I've never read Stephen King. I've never really read C.S. Lewis, except when I was in Bible college. I had to read C.S. Lewis on his book on the Psalms. I tend to read books that people don't normally read. I don't follow literary trends. I'm not into, I tend to consider myself a modernist. So I like writers that I grew up with. Since I'm going to be 64 years old next month in August, I tend to like writers from the 19th century on up until probably the 60s. I like writers from, there are certain writers I like today, like Joyce Carol Oates, and there are certain writers I do read that who are still alive today. But I tend also to read a lot of nonfiction. I like biographies. I like history. I like reading about all different kinds of things. And I like to read to learn new things, to have my awareness of reality expanded, to see deeper into the world around me. So I don't read necessarily to escape or to be entertained. I kind of read to have my mind open to worlds and ideas that would not normally occur to me, since I live a very I'm kind of a loner. So yeah, that's what I'm reading. That's what's on my mind. Tomorrow's a Thursday. I was thinking about going to thrift stores today, but I didn't feel like leaving the house. So I stayed here and I read my books, wrote my diary, watched the birds, and watched existence blow by. So I'm hoping you're having a good week. Until next time, bye.